Welcome to Balanced Life Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Angela Clark. Life is a crazy, wonderful adventure, and it can pull you in every direction, sometimes all at once. Can you really achieve success in one area of life without losing it all everywhere else? Can it really be done? Are you up for a good challenge? Well, let's get started. Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of Balanced Life Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Angela Clark, and I'm so glad you've joined us today. Now, if you've been listening to the previous episodes, my goal with this podcast is to talk about the books that have made an impact in me and have really helped me to develop my personal life, my business, all the things that come together to really balance yourself out. Hence the name of the podcast. And usually up until this point, it's been books that I've purchased and am reading, and I've talked about them in the podcast episodes. But as you also know, if you've been listening to this podcast, I am also a voice artist, and part of what I do is narrate audiobooks. And I have been working on audiobooks for an author whose name is Noelles Nelson. And if you've never heard of her, I do encourage you to check her out and check out her books. And when you narrate for an author, especially when you've narrated several of their books, I feel like I've gotten to know her. And she is an amazing woman. But the most recent book that I've finished for is a book called Phoenix Rising, Surviving Catastrophic Loss, Fires, Floods, Hurricanes, and Tornadoes. Now, she goes through this book and talks about some catastrophic losses that she's lived through and how she made it through and how she recovered and how she really thrived. Like the title says, how she rose from the ashes. And it's really an impressive story. I can't tell you enough how much it's worth getting this book. And again, I'm not being paid to promote her. She paid me to produce the audiobook, and that's it. I don't get anything for telling you about it other than I enjoy passing on the knowledge that I find in these books, and the best way I can talk about it, and I'm going to, but the best way to really get it is to get the book, obviously. And I'm not going to spoil the book for you. I don't do that. I'm kind of giving you just a little bit of a book report. But there's one part of the story that I about cried reading it because she talks about handling the loss of her home and all of her belongings from a fire. And I've never experienced a fire like that in my own life. But listening to her story, she talks about how people would try to console her by telling her it was just things that she lost. And that in them trying to console her, it would make her angry. It would make her frustrated because those words, even though those people meant well, those words did not help. And the reason that was so personal to me, the reason it was hard for me to read is we went through that same type of trauma in our own lives. I think I've mentioned before that years ago we were foster parents, and we went through the process of going through that adoption process with a child that we had in care, and we had planned on adopting. And if you've ever been a foster parent, you know that your goal is to protect that child and nurture that child until they are ready to go back home or to go to their forever home somewhere. And 99% of the time for us, it was always we watched over them, we protected them, we tried to help them recover from whatever they had been through, but they go back home or they go with family members. But this one child was to come up for adoption, and we were to adopt him, and we opened up our hearts more because he was going to be ours. And the day that he went into court, or the day that the caseworker went to court to terminate the parental rights so that we could start the adoption process, the judge did a whole 180 and sent our baby back to his mom. And we had had him 2 years at that point, and he was little, and he was ours. And in a flash, the foster care agency came to our house. We packed up everything that he owned, and he left. And we never saw him. Because we were foster parents, once he's out of our care, we didn't have any rights to know anything about him. To us, he was gone. He was gone forever. And we lost a child that day. Our children lost their baby brother, and we lost a son that we loved. And we also knew that he wasn't going back to a healthy home. It wasn't like other foster children where someone had made big changes in their life and the courts had said, "You're ready, this is good." There had been times like that where we felt good about what we had done and that we had helped families recover. But this was tragic. This was a child ripped away from our loving, stable home, thrown back into a hell that he had once been rescued from. For some, I don't know, we were told it was some political reason, but whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, the tragedy that we went through was so huge, it tore us all apart as a family. And time after time, people would lovingly say to us, "Well, God must have known that he would bring you nothing but trouble." Or, "God must have known that he would be heartache for you." And I'll tell you, surprisingly, we heard those comments several times from people, meaning well, but oh my, I wanted to punch them in the face for saying such a thing because he was my child. I loved that little boy like I love my own children, and for someone to say that, I would risk hell on earth for my child. You don't take my child away from me because they might cause me hurt or anger or disappointment. That's my child. I love my children unconditionally, and that little boy was mine. And he was taken from us. Now back to the book, because I need a break from my story. Noelle talks about having that same anger and expressing it, and that she needed to finally yell out to someone that the stuff that she lost was not just stuff. It was everything to her. It was the mementos, it was souvenirs, it was her father's flag from when he had fought in the war. It was things that were never going to be replaced. And then she goes on, because I don't want to ruin the story, and I encourage you so much to get this book. She talks about releasing her pain and her anger, and how she realized how blessed she had been and was grateful for all that she had had, for however many years she had had it before she lost it all in that fire. And she talks about building your new story. And one quote, because I have to give you a quote from the book, but one quote is, "Everything is different now, yes, but different doesn't mean bad. Different means just that, different." Now, I think because I've had a few minutes, I'll finish my end of the story. But if you've ever gone through tragic loss, you know it's not a quick recovery. It's a day at a time. It requires patience. It's okay to explode here and there because you need to let that stuff out. I remember after we lost our son, I had plenty of times alone in my vehicle where I had it out with God, because I figure He loves me more than anybody, and so He can take it. And I told Him how pissed off I was, how angry at everything that I was, how it was not fair, this was not right, that I trusted Him, and this is what I get for trusting Him. I let Him have it, because you know what? I needed to be able to scream at somebody. And I knew that He loves me, and that He understood my heart, and He understood my hurt. And so, whoever you need to yell at, make sure make sure they love you enough to know it's not personal. But the one thing that Noelle talks about that was so, so important in her recovery was to cling to her family and her friends, to cling to her community, to make herself get up every day, take one step forward, one more step, one more step. When she felt like hiding under the covers, get herself up out of that bed and take one more step. And whatever it is that you've gone through, if you have gone through, and if you haven't, God bless you. But I think a lot of us have gone through some kind of trauma in our lives, and it doesn't matter if we share the trauma, the feelings that come from it are the same. The important thing is that you give yourself time to recover. Focus on what you need to recover. Cling to your family, your friends, your community. Cling to what makes you strong. When we lost our son, all of us grieved in our own way. We have 3 children of our own, so all 5 of us, we grieved. But I do remember not long after that, we packed up our children and took them to Chuck E. Cheese, believe it or not, because we needed a family day. We needed an escape from the pain and the heartache. We needed something to do together, to laugh. And eventually, the pain lessens and you get stronger. We grew even tighter as a family because we did not let it tear us apart. We grew stronger, we grew tighter. You see, this was one of those struggles that really, really knocked me on my rear. But you can't stay down forever. We licked our wounds, we held each other, we cried. I still cry over that little boy, and it's been a long time. It doesn't mean the hurt and the pain goes away. It means you've got a little callus there, a reminder of where you've been, what you've done, and what you've been through. But you're stronger now. You rise up. You embrace those loved ones around you that make you stronger. You make them stronger, they make you stronger, and together, you rise. Life is full of troubles, little ones, big ones, whatever. You're never going to get through life without them. In fact, they make us better. They make us stronger. So no, I wouldn't have wanted or ever have chosen to go through something like that. And I still don't see any good in it. But there doesn't have to be good, as long as I grow. As long as I don't let it take me out. I'm stronger, and that's what you get from something like that. Whew. Okay, that was a little deep for me. I don't usually get this serious in my podcast, but Noelle, if you ever hear this podcast, girl, you brought it out of me. Now, I love quotes, and I found this one. I'm just going to end today's podcast with this, but it's called The 7 Rules of Life. 1. Smile. It always works out in the end. 2. Be kind. You have the power to make people feel good. 3. Don't give up. If it doesn't work the first time, find another way. 4. Don't compare. Everyone's on a different journey. 5. Avoid negativity. Avoid negative thoughts, situations, and people. 6. Make peace with your past. Focus on being present and creating a better future. Ooh, I think that one's exactly what my podcast was about today. And 7. Take care of your body and mind. One struggles to survive without the other. Oh, I like that last one. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends about it. Pass it on. Whatever. Take that little finger down to the bottom and hit that subscribe button. I sure do appreciate it. And remember, take on those struggles. Take on those goals that you have for your life, one step at a time.